Hello, my name is Steve Foreman. I'm a fine artist, and I've always been interested in oil paint, sculpture, filmmaking, and really anything to do with the fine arts. Today, I'd like to show you how to make a canvas frame from wood, your own custom canvas frame. The benefit of making your own oil painting canvas frame is that, first of all, you can control the dimensions, so you can get any size, width, or height that you want. In addition, you can control the thickness of the frame, however thick you want to make the frame. Also, the quality of the frame, the type of wood is going to be better than a store-bought frame where they basically have those thin pieces of wood, and also sometimes the relief between the frame and the wood is not enough, and you get that the image of the wood actually come through into the frame. And I'm going to show you about that later. In addition to that, you can control the presence. When you have the actual quality frame, the right amount of braces and just the presence of the frame, just a lot better. If you're going to sell a painting for a lot of money, it just makes sense to just have a custom-made frame by the artist that is going to be of the same quality as the painting that you actually put on the surface of the actual canvas. Now, I like to take the time to discuss the tools that you're going to need to actually make your canvas frame. Now, I'm going to discuss two ways that you can make the canvas frames, because I realize some people may have a workshop with electrical equipment in it for doing woodworking and things like that. Some people may be on a limited budget with limited space. They may not have access to electricity. I'm going to give you alternative ways to make things where if you have necessarily electricity or not, you can still make your frame. Okay, first I like to discuss the tools. Now, you can have a table such as this one right here where you can actually miter and cut your wood. This is really nice because you have a blade here and you can rip your wood, and also you can cut bevels into your wood. This is the table saw that we can use to cut a piece of wood. We have it so we can actually bevel the wood, as well as just cut a long strip of wood. We're using a strip of wood to cut like this. We can actually strip a thicker piece of wood down into a smaller piece of wood. So if you don't have a table saw like this, there's other tools that you can use to do this particular job. If you don't have that, what I suggest is that you can use a quarter round. I'm going to show you a technique for using that. Now, the tools that you're going to need is some nice clamps like this one here for holding your wood to your table. And here's another alternative to some clamps. This is just like a little spring clamp for quickly getting something into position. You're going to also need a square. You have to do a little bit of drilling. If you're going to drill, there's an electric drill with a cord and a drill bit. And this is a very nice tool to have for drilling and sinking any screws that's going to go into the actual frame. Again, this is one attached with a cord. They also have these that come with batteries. If you don't have batteries, use this kind of saw as well, just a hand saw. So these are fairly cheap. You can get them at any Home Depot or Lowe's fairly inexpensively. All you really need is this plastic miter box that you can purchase, again, for a couple of dollars at any Home Depot or Lowe's. This is a very nice tool. Doesn't cost a lot of money. You'll need a hammer to tap in any little nails that you may have to nail. You're gonna need some paneling nails like this for your hammer. And then maybe some small screws like this that we can sink to bring in the frame nice and tight as we make it later. Of course, you need something to measure with, a tape measure, and also pencil. You're gonna also want some wood glue. And my wood glue is well used, as you can see, but you can use regular Elmer's glue, any glue that you like to use. We use this with your clamps to put your quarter round down. You don't have even an electrical drill, you can always use the old-fashioned drill like this. This is a really nice tool. I always like to have this little handy guy, because sometimes what I do is I score my masonite pieces. I cut these into triangle shapes. First of all, it comes as a big board, 4 by 8 feet. And I cut it down to these little 8 by 8s, and then I'll cut this diagonally to make little triangles. And then I score them with this and just break them into little triangles. And I use that to support my frame. In addition, I'm going to sand the wood down to get rid of any like burrs, anything that could really disrupt my canvas. So I can just easily drag my canvas and stretch my canvas over nice, smooth, perfectly sanded wood. Okay, and I've also made this little nice handy dandy sanding tool for just that purpose. Now I'm going to talk to you about materials. First, we're going to have I'm going to build essentially I'm going to build a 40 by 60 inch frame. That's 40 inches by 60 inches. I'm going to use 1 by 2s. Here I have a 1 by 2 by 6. I have 2 of these 1 by 2 by 6s. I also have a 1 by 2 by 8 where I can cut 2 40-inch pieces out of this. I have quarter round. This is a quarter round that is basically 8 feet. And I bought one big long 12-foot quarter round that basically I cut down into 6 foot. This is going to be my 60-inch piece. I have 2 of these. Okay, obviously I'm going to use some glue, and I'm going to use my little Masonites that's 8 by 8 inches that I'm going to cut into a triangle. Screws to help secure my frame into these corners, and also these little paneling nails as well. Okay, we'll get started. First, I'm going to start with basically the longest piece, which is this one nice long 1 by 2 by 8. Okay, and I'm going to get the quarter round that matches that piece. And I'm basically going to look for the smoothest edge on the wood. And I've determined that that's the smoothest edge. And also I'm going to look for the smoothest edge on the quarter round. And I'm basically going to flush this up. Now, what I like to do is turn this around, and that's what I do. You turn this around so you can see it. Okay, now this edge is nice and flush. And that's what we basically want. We want a nice flush edge just like that. So what I usually do to build that is kind of set it up. Now this wood has a bit of a bow in it, and by putting the quarter round on it, it will take care of the bow. Usually what I want is I want that bow to bow up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get my wood glue. And I'm going to put the wood glue on the quarter round. And just start in this corner here. Just go from one end to the next with some wood glue. And I just put my wood glue. Now I should have probably removed this little label that was on there from the store. It's kind of going to mess with it a little bit. Shouldn't hurt too much. Okay. I'm just going to go all the way down the wood with the wood glue. Okay, there we go. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to just take this with the glue, and I really want the glue to do all of the real holding for this. I'm going to use some paneling nails, little skinny nails, to kind of secure this. But before I do that, I'm just going to take these little clamps, and I'm going to just clamp these down flush. I'm just going to get my clamps here. I don't know if you can see this, but here we are right here. And just shorten them down. And essentially, I'm going to clamp this, pull my tabletop back. Okay, well, of course I'm gonna walk around a bit here so that I can get it nice and flush. Okay, what you wanna do is just flush this out. I'm gonna come down about 2.5 feet or so, or from the first one. Make sure it's nice and flush. And I'm gonna just take my finger and kind of just go down. Make sure there's no excess glue. Get my handy dandy hammer and a paneling nail. And I'm just gonna tack this in on this side here. I'm gonna come in at about maybe 6 inches or so. And I'm gonna start by basically in the middle of the quarter round and just gently hammer that in. Okay, and now that I have that nice and flush, I can kind of, let me tack that in. I can kind of release this clamp because the nail is holding it now. Just make sure it's nice and flush with my fingers to get it as flush as I can. Get my hammer, and the paneling nail, and I'm gonna go on this side of the clamp this time. Put my nail in. Use another nail. Again, this is about 1.5 foot down from the other one. You don't necessarily have to leave the nails in. If you want, you can just nail the nails in halfway just so they hold. Then later pull them out if you just want a nailless frame. And we're going to clamp down the wood. Okay? And I'm going to start in the top corner of the wood, using my thumb to flush up quarter round to the outside edge of the 1x2. I'm just going to kind of drive the old nail home. And then I'm going to drive her home. Okay, then we're going to go down a little bit, to about 2 feet or so, and I'm going to add another paneling nail. Again, using my thumb, keep it nice and flush. And once I have those nailed, I can actually remove the clampage and then go down about 2 feet or more further, and then reclamp. And then again, drive in your paneling nail. Okay? And you just keep the process going. Sliding down again. Making sure she's nice and flush, about 2 feet or so. I like to go about 2 feet. So on a piece that's, 6 feet, going to be at least 3 nails. Sometimes I put in 4. What we have here is a Mitre box, and what I'm going to do to make this more secure so I can put it on my table, take it off my table, I'm going to secure it to this piece of plywood here so I can use my trusty clamps to clamp it to the table so I can make my Mitre cuts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my battery operated drill. Of course, if you don't have one, you can use a regular screwdriver. This is a Phillips head screw with a Phillips head butt in it, or you can use the hand drill that I showed you earlier. Okay, this is a very simple thing to do. You just put your screw in and again we're going to drive her on home. And what we're going to do now is apply a clamp to this. Here we're going to flush it to the edge of the table and clamp my Mitre box down to the tabletop with our clamps. And this will get us a nice secure miter box to do our sawing with. Okay, what I have here is a miter box here, and basically I have it mounted to this board here, and it's screwed in and secured to my table. So it's really not going to go anywhere. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my quarter round piece inside, and then I'm going to measure it for its dimension. Now this is going to be my 60-inch strip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a mark, and I'm just going to pick a mark about 3 inches in, and I'm going to mark the back, and I'm also going to mark same place around the front, just to make my first miter corner. Okay, what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take my miter and I'm going to line it up to the 45-degree angle. I'm going to take that mark that you see right there, and then I'm going to line that mark up against there. I'm going to take this clamp. I'm just going to get that clamp and just kind of help to hold that in place for me as I saw. Okay, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my saw and begin the sawing process. Okay, so then what I do is this is on a 45-degree angle, and what I want that mark is to intersect right there with the angle. Now you got to make sure the saw is on both grooves, and again you want to make sure this clamp stays in position. You don't want it to really get out of position. And I'm also using my hand to hold that in as the clamp. Then I'm going to begin the sawing process. Get out of the way. And I'm just going to saw. And there you go. Your first miter is cut. Perfect, nice and smooth. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the opposite end. For that, we're going to use our tape measure. What I'm going to do is go down here and measure off 60 inches. I'm going to mark off very precisely 60 inches. Since this angle is going this way, we want the other angle to go the other way. So I'm going to slide this in the miter box. I'm going to use one of the other frames to kind of get me a level. I'm going to do what my block was doing down here. On that end, I'm going to go to the other end with my saw, and I'm going to line it up with the opposite miter wedge there. Just get my little, and the Sharpie looks a lot clearer on the video than the pencil. So I think the Sharpie works out a little bit better in terms of video demonstration. Okay, and I'm left-handed, so I do all of my cutting left-handed. And I'm just going to add my clamps here the best I can to help me hold this in position and do some cutting. Now, this is a little bit in the way, so I'm going to switch this. Okay, here we go. Start gently just to make sure everything is nicely lined up. And it is. I keep both. First, I keep my saw nice and low, and I go kind of slow to make sure both grooves are in. When I start, when it gets down a little bit, I will kind of angle a little bit more. Take bigger, stronger strokes with the saw. And again, this is going to give me a nice 45-degree angle. Now I have a perfect angle here cut, and I have one perfect frame piece cut and ready to be assembled. I'll do the same process for the other pieces. I'm going to cut it down and miter it down so it's 40-inch mitered size. Okay, I have my mark, my starter mark here, and I just go in about 1 inch or so from the edge. And then I'm going to just flush it into my miter box really nice. Get my clamps, open them up and clamp it down. So it has a nice good clamp in there. And then I'm going to get my saw. I got my clamp. And we're going to cut a nice angle. Again, just like we have done before, I'm just going to use my hand to kind of make sure it's flush and the clamp is holding it nice and steady. I start nice and slow at first, right on my mark. And just do a nice, smooth, miter cut. We are. The cut is done. Okay, I'm going to now measure off my 40-inch and cut the other part. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do now is lay this in. Measure out my 40-inch. Just, this is on the back end. You want to measure the back end, 40 inches. So I measure that. Okay, I'm going to line this up with this slot here. And I'm going to apply a clamp on this side. And then I'm going to walk around to the other side. And I'm going to just get some stuff to shim it up because I like it kind of not so it's dangling around, you know, and bouncing as I'm sawing. Then I'm going to get another clamp and clamp it down this way. And these clamps have nice rubber tips on them, so they do pretty good when you're doing your miter cuts. Then I start nice and slow, and I'm kind of ambidextrous. I can actually go both left-handed and right-hand, establish my cut, and just lay the cut right on the mark, and just watch it cut through the quarter round. As I'm watching it, I watch it as it also starts to cut through the 1x2, making sure it stays nice and flush to the edge so I get a nice, clean, 45-degree angle. You'll walk away with a nice, clean, 45-degree angle. And you can see there my mark is pretty clean. And there it is, 40 inches exactly. So now I have my 40-inch piece to go with my 60-inch piece. Now I'll do the same thing for the other piece, cut an exact 40-inch piece of frame. Okay, I'm cutting the 60-inch piece now. And I'm doing my starter mark, which is here. I have that mark flush with this 45-degree angle groove. And to start it out, I usually kind of start backwards with the saw. And I just let the weight of the saw, don't put any effort. I'm going to put a groove into the quarter round, using my hand to kind of make sure nothing moves. Now I have this nice saw, this nice clamp holding the flush to the back of this miter, and this clamp holding that in. Then my hand is basically monitoring the wood just to make sure it doesn't move at all. It's inside of the miter. Then as I get into the 1x2, I might apply just a little bit more elbow grease. And there we go. And you can tell when your piece comes through because it's ring clear. And we're done. Okay, now we're going to get into the assembly portion of making the frame. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my T-square. And what I have done is I've clamped down my square 8x8 masonite down to the corner of my table, leaving the corners exposed so that I can use my jigsaw. I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut this. It's easier. Now, when I have these masonite stacked 4 up So when I cut these, I'm cutting 4 corners all at one time. Okay, I'm gonna need to make sure I have enough room to run my jigsaw with my clamps. It seems like one of my clamps might be a little bit not enough room, so I gotta somehow get enough room in there. Okay, I think I have enough room to make it all the way through. Masonite down, so I got these really nice, a whole big nice stack of nice corners in here, and what we're going to do is just use the square to keep it perfectly square. What we're going to do is we're going to use a little glue in the angle itself, sandwich them together. I'm going to also put some glue in the corner of the Masonite. So I'm going to take some glue and I'm just going to go along the right angle, the edge of the right angle. Okay, and I'm going to take that angle and I'm going to lay it right in here just like this. And then I'll get my clamp. And I'm just going to clamp it down and secure it into its right angle in place. Okay. And I'm going to tack the Masonite, one of the corners of the Masonite into the 1x2. Okay, I'm going to go to the opposite one. Run a sinker hole into my corner. Okay, and I have like a very thin drill bit in there. Just give me a little pallet hole on the sinker hole for when I drill this. Okay, what I'm going to use is my battery operated drill. And I'm going to grab one of my screws and drill it right. That's in there nice and secure. Then you're going to do that for your other corners. Okay, what I have is some glue here. I have my clamps securely clamped in there. I'm going to put my glue down. You put a little bit of glue on the end of your nail that I've already sunk a hole in there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is show you how to rip a board. This is a 1x6 that I'm going to rip down to a 1x2. Table saw is set straight up and down. And what you can do is, you pull this back. This is the safety guard. You pull that back, and you let up your blade till the blade just clears the top of the wood. Okay. And you let that down. Okay. And of course, we turn it around. When you're using the table saw, this rail is to adjust the measurement. You just set that at 2 inches, lock it down, and then you keep the board pressed against this edge so it's nice and flush, and you'll get your really nice 1x2. Okay, now we're gonna cut this down. So this is the center brace for the frame. Okay, now what I've done is I measured off the inner dimension of the actual frame, and I'm gonna cut this using this square that's on the table saw. I took the this guide rail off because this piece is a little too long. I'm just gonna kind of go by eye, and before I start it up, I'm just gonna kind of line that up a bit. Then I'm gonna use my pencil to kind of measure that to make sure that stays nice. Inner brace cut for the inside dimension of the frame, and I'm going to assemble this to the frame just as I did the corners using the masonite corners here and the glue and the nails. Okay, so using these masonite corners, glue and nails, I'm going to fasten this to the frame. As you can see, the masonite has been applied to the inside brace as well. The quarter round is on this side, the 1x2 is on this side. What I'm going to also do for added support, and what I do with the corners, just like I've done here on the corner, I'm going to also go over the drill here. And just kind of sink that. Then what I'm going to do is get my screw. What I do is dip this screw in a little glue. And you don't need a whole lot of glue, just enough to kind of fill in that hole. And then I get my wireless with my Phillips head bit in it. And it sink it on in flush. Okay. And then what you have now is a very, very secure frame. Okay, now I decided to move things out into a bigger room just to show you the assembled frame. What I have is I basically have a T intersection where I have one 1x2 going across here, and I connected it just like we did before, the masonite. And then what I did was put some glue in there as well with the tacky nails. Then I took 2 more strips and connected it to each end just for some more support. And then I put a square piece of masonite right in there so that we can have support for this T intersection and keep that nice and rigid. But also what we have is a few little bores sticking out the back end. And what I'm going to do is just use this little Dremel tool here that I have. And you can see what that does. And what I'm going to do is kind of clean up any little nail burrs that might come out. You can see here, it's a little bit of a screw, a nail burr. And this has a little stone there on the end. And then I'm just going to use this to kind of clean the back of this down. And here's another one here. Being careful only to get the metal and not to really deal with the wood. And there we go. We just use the Dremel tool to just clean up any sticking up, any nails that don't bend over that I can't submerge. Here's one more here that I can get. Okay, and that takes care of any nail burrs that may stick into something like the canvas or someone's hands later. Obviously the canvas is going to be wrapped over here. Okay, next what I'm going to do is to apply some sandpaper and a little putty in the gaps just to have a nice smooth canvas. Okay. It's the next day. We allow 24 hours for the glue to dry. We're gonna get the trusty sander and we're gonna sand this baby down. And now we're gonna use my trusty hand sander that I made to smooth the frame down. And it actually goes pretty fast. And believe it or not, this technique is just as fast as the electric sander. Right now, this corner is getting very, very smooth on top. Smooth. Perfect. And I'm going to work my way. I'm even going to take off some of the hardness that just go in here. And this is what this allows me to do too. I can just take off just enough of the sharp edge. My canvas go around, it's just not so sharp where it could cut the canvas or any splinters that might hit your hand while you're stretching or might rip the canvas. Again, taking care of that glue that I put right here at this joint. Just taking a hand sander and basically just, let me get it in here so we can see a little bit better. Just really kind of just get it butter smooth. Again, I go along the inside edge, which is the picture edge. And for handling purposes, I like to get the outside edge too, and the underneath edges. Because a lot of times you pick up the canvas, the hand is going around like that. Okay, as you can see, I'm using my sanding block. But what I'm also going to use is this nice wood file for any big bulky things that you might want to take down. I like to use this too. And this just will take down very, very quickly anything that might be irregular or just unusually bulky. Takes down the bulk, and then I use the flat sander to get it nice and flat after I have the bulk taken down to where I want it. Also, this has a rounded edge, which is also good for taking any bulk down that might be on the inside of your frame. And then you can just maybe get about 60-70% of it smooth with this. Then come back with your sander and clean up the rest. Okay, and that would be for all the corners, the back corner. Let me get this back corner. Put this inside. Okay, as you can see, I've actually added some quarter round to the back. And also when I do this sanding, when I don't use the block, I'm just using the hand, I actually sand the masonite as well. Anything that makes the presentation of the canvas look kind of rough. I mean, again, it's all about having a quality piece of work. So I go around, I sand anything a person's hand might touch, just to make sure there's no wild splinters, bores, or anything that might get a person's hand and just hurt or cause any kind of injury. So it's just kind of nice to have. Also, the canvas just looks a lot better. And you just take the step, and as you can see, it doesn't take long. I mean, I'm basically using number 60 general DW weight grit paper. So it actually does a pretty good job of making it smooth and taking down the bulk as well. Okay, so the whole idea is just to get this thing so that it's a nice, and even though some of the parts look rather rough at first, this last little step, this is all rough, loose ends up. Just give you a really nice overall finished package. So just continue sanding. Do you feel the sanded enough? And remember, when you're sanding, it's really this edge here is your business edge. This top edge here. That's the edge that really has to be good, because that's where the canvas is going to actually be touching the frame. Canvas should not touch the frame at any place else if we stretch it right. Of course, as you're mashing, with your brushes and with your palettes as you're painting, you don't want to mash into these pieces of frame and masonite here. Sometimes for a size of 40 by 60 inches like this is, I won't even put a center frame in, because what I want to do is not have that thing mash in there. But the back braces actually almost eliminate that. If you have the front and back masonite braces, you almost don't need this center frame. This is something that you should experiment with. Some people like a very, very, very solid, secure frame that won't do like a Prango Patango potato chip. You can see this is basically for the size. I mean, it has the right amount of wiggle in it. And you're not gonna get it perfect unless you actually have a 3-inch depth here. And then it won't wiggle that much, but it'll be substantially heavy. You can see this frame is not heavy for its size at all. It's about as lightweight. And that's why I like to go with this, with the quarter round, because the frame is gonna be about 5 pounds or so, or maybe even 10 pounds. So we're talking about between 5 and 10 pounds lighter than it would be if you actually beveled the edge. And the store-bought ones are very light, but this one is very sturdy, very strong, and it's built exactly the way I want. And then also, by having the lintels on there, it does give you a place to actually put any hangers. For example, you can put a hanger here, here. You got plenty of places. You can even drill it through the masonite, put hangers around the top. But a lot of times it's a wire that's gonna come up, and then it's gonna hit a screw about here, hit a screw there, and then come back about down to there. So this gives you something. And then also, if you're taking it, you can actually carry it into a gallery or something like that, because you have a little bar there.